My name is Anthony O'Connell, Upper Feast. Thank you so much for listening. I'm a man with a high voice. I moved to New York City to pursue stand-up comedy, started a food blog in the Upper East Side of Manhattan, recently moved back to Columbus, Ohio, and decided to start a podcast. I'll be interviewing people that love to Upper Feast, people in the service industry, restaurant owners, foodies, comedians, anyone who loves food. I'll be talking to them. So today I talk with Jeni of Jeni's Ice Cream. She's an author, an ice cream mogul, and a really kind, intelligent person. We talk about her dropping out of college to pursue her dreams, overcoming adversity, a more affordable ice cream, psychedelic mushrooms. We really get into it. So I enjoy this episode a lot, and I hope you do too. If you like this, please subscribe, tell a friend. If you really love it, give me a rating. I'd greatly appreciate it. Anyways, let's get into it. Jeni, hey there. How you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you? It's a beautiful fall day.
It really is. But I eat ice cream year round because I'm not a coward. So I feel like
That's a very good way to put it. I do too, obviously.
Of course. So I think if you want, we can just jump right into it. I like to start with a quick little game of feast or pass. And I'll ask you some random food questions and see if you'd feast or pass and why. So the first one is a little polarizing: foie gras.
Oh, feast.
Feast?
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
I like historical foods too. So, I know there's some controversy in certain, in how they're fed and all of that, the ducks mostly, but anyway, whatever, you know what I mean? I think you can do it relatively humanely as well. And I would feast.
Awesome. Yeah, I think.
However, it's not something I would make at home. I don't
Sure.
want to know anything else besides that, right?
Right.
I do make like chicken liver mousse with Julia Child's recipe, which is I could eat the whole thing myself, and it's so many calories.
It is.
And I make it with whiskey, Middle West whiskey.
I'm into that. Julia Child's, she's one of the greats of all time. Like, she's anything she does, big feast for me.
Same.
Now, what about polar opposite end of the spectrum here? American cheese product, just like the little yellow cheese you get in that weird little plastic thing.
Okay, that's a for sure feast for me, and I will tell you, like, Land O'Lakes from the deli, American cheese. It doesn't matter if you get white or yellow.
Yeah.
But yes, for that, and that's definitely like for grilled cheese, for hamburgers, right? For cheeseburgers.
Right.
No way would I pass it up. In fact, when somebody, like my mom just made us hamburgers the other day, she lives here with us right now. And she had to put like regular, sharp cheddar on it. And I was like, forget it. I just have a hamburger.
Right.
But yeah, no, I'm good. Or even like Velveeta, like all Sean Brock, who's a chef, an amazing chef from the South, James Beard Award, like just amazing guy, calls Velveeta a heritage food. And I'm like, okay, if that's how you give it a pass, I'm all in. Cause you can't make the green bean casserole without Velveeta.
That's true. And it gets a lot of hate and people make fun of it, but like what you said, for grilled cheese or for a cheeseburger, it's pretty iconic. You can't really beat it.
Totally.
What about another little polarizing one? Veal, like a veal parmesan. Would you do a veal parm?
Yeah, I would. I'm not so I will say like schnitzel and like pounded breaded meat is like, first of all, one of my specialties, and I love it. I would rather go with pork, or if you really want to make me happy, pork neck. So I don't know, man. They take the neck, I guess, and slice it really thin, but it has like the perfect fat. You know who will do this is Thurns down in German Village, and they're the ones that turn me on to this. So then you pound that out really thin and bread it, and then fry it in shallow like butter and olive oil. That is way better. So I would just go with that. I would go with that.
Fair enough. That's what's up. Now, last one for the feast or pass category: eel sushi.
I definitely love eel. Eel is just, it just has a texture of fish. It's not that, it's like a long fish, right?
Yeah.
And I've actually been in Greece. I spent a summer in Greece when I was young. This was an interesting summer. I took $500. That's all I could save. And I went to Greece for 8 weeks and lived off of $500, which meant that like, I was like, hanging out with people who literally lived in camped by the sea and would go get eels out of the water and cook them over campfire. And that would be like how I would eat sometimes on that amazing trip. But no, eel is good. You just don't want to watch it being skinned because it's pretty sick.
Yeah, that's my problem. So like, I love all sushi. So the reason I specified eel is because eel's one of those things where when I eat it, I just picture the actual animal and it freaks me out and I get a little grossed out, but it does taste
good. It freaks me out though, and everybody loves, and this is like culinary, like, is sea urchin. So I can't eat the, this, it just reminds me of eating someone like a human's tongue. It's just gross. It's so gross to me. But I was in a little, I was on a chef thing in Italy one time and they did sea urchin soup. I love the flavor of it. I just can't handle that texture.
Fair enough.
It's one of my passes, but eel is fine.
Eel, okay, cool. And then so the next thing we do is we do it rate it 1 to feast, which is like a 1 to 5 scale, but we say feast for fun because I run the Upper Feast account. So
that's awesome.
yeah, little casual little branding here. But Hawaiian pizza, 1 to feast. So if it sucks, say like 1 or 2. If you're meh, 3 or 4. If it's amazing, feast.
I'm gonna go with a 4 on that one. I love Hawaiian pizza, but I've got to reserve like feast for like the super top. I wouldn't put it in the super top, but I've had some pretty amazing Hawaiian pizzas, and if it shows up at my house from Donato's or wherever local, I will always have 2 or 3 pieces of that in addition to whatever else. So
I love it. I feel like it's all just like yes, yes, yes. I'm really into that. That's great.
I mean, I like flavor and food.
So what about a power ranking of soft serve ice cream, gelato, and frozen custard? What's your gold, silver, and bronze?
Okay. And you're not including American hard body ice cream, which is what I make.
I know you would say that one for sure, probably.
No, we're gonna go with that one's number 1. Okay. So wait, we're talking about regular soft serve, and because I'm in ice cream, this is not an easy question. So there's like Dairy Queen soft serve, which is actually relatively creamy. Now I'm not going to get into how they do that. I have no idea how they do that. It might be some vegetable oils. It might be full on dairy. I have no idea. That's totally fine. And then there's frozen, but there's levels. So some of the smaller, soft serves can be a bit icy, whereas I think like Dairy Queen's is more smooth. And then if you're talking about American gelato, which has no federal standards, and like, let's say you buy it at the grocery store and you have like American gelato, even like any of it, mostly from the grocery store, a lot of times it's going to have some kind of vegetable fat in it, vegetable oil, because those freeze in a way that's, you'll notice it now when you eat it. So it's super smooth because that's how vegetable oil, certain ones will freeze, but it leaves like a film on your palate. Okay. So that contrasted with what you actually have it like in, let's say Sorbetto di Castiglione or whatever in Bologna, which is an incredible gelateria in Bologna that I've been to several times, and it's just mind blowing. So there are levels within all of those that could be 1, 2, and 3 for all of them. And of course, I grew up in Peoria, Illinois, which meant Wisconsin and St. Louis were like, I was like sandwiched by them. That is the hub of frozen custard in the United States. So, if it's well made, every one of those is going to be at the very top, right?
Yeah.
And every one of them can also be at the very bottom. So I just went around that question. Now, if I had to eat one today, I would say, it's really hard unless I could actually get to Italy. I'm not going to go with gelato because I just haven't found one and where I could have access to it that I think is at the number 3 level or whatever. So I would rank them. I'd probably go with frozen custard first, then soft serve, and then gelato. But I mean, that is weird because I'm talking about that from my place here.
Gotcha.
Clearly, if it's a well-made gelato, I'm going for that first.
So you think if they're all number 1, if they're all like elite,
they're all at their top of their game, I'm going to go with, let's do it like that. If it's all at the top of the game, I'm going to go gelato, custard, then soft serve.
Awesome. Fair enough. I personally put soft serve first, maybe just because I've never had the real authentic, like I've had like Talenti gelato, and like when I lived in New York City, I had gelato from a couple places. So I don't know how authentic it was, but yeah, gelato is very good. Don't get me wrong. But for me, it's probably second or third. And then talk about you specifically. I did a little Google and saw on Wikipedia that dropped out of college to follow your dreams. Like that takes a lot of guts. Like what made you believe in your product so much? Or were you a little burnt out on school? Like, was it a whole culmination of things?
People will say it takes guts, but for me, well, first of all, I didn't have family telling me that I was stupid for doing that. And so that would have taken guts, I think, if you had to go against your entire family because they'd been paying for it and blah, 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 that would take a lot of guts. But for me, it actually would take more guts for me to actually like acquiesce and be like, yes, no, I should definitely become an accountant first, just to be safe. I would feel out of my element. I would feel I was in the wrong life every day that I woke up, and it would probably make me want to throw up. It would not be for me. Right. And so living an inauthentic life to me takes more guts than actually just going for it. And now that, I lived off minimum wage for most of my life. So, this was not an easy thing to get off the ground. I mean, of course, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't realize that like building an ice cream company that can compete with Ben and Jerry's is going to be like as brutal as it is. Like, of course it is. Of course it's going to be brutal. These are massive companies that have a lot at stake, right? Awesome, right? So now I get to do this, but it takes 20 something years, right? So I have literally been on an adventure equal to Frodo, I think. And anyway, I'm glad I did it, but like it wasn't as easy as I thought, or even as fun as I thought, although it has been pretty fun.
Well, and also I really believe that since you didn't have a safety net of, say, an accountant degree or whatever degree you would have had, I think you had to do it. Because if you had a safety net,
exactly.
You just would have been a normal person working a normal job.
That's why you got to just jump in, because you know what? Now everybody knows you're doing it, and you just got to keep going, right? You have to keep going. You can't just like turn around. I think I similarly, like whenever I want to do something, whenever I'm like, deciding something, whether it's writing a book or making some project that's big, it's going to be all consuming. I'm the kind of person that tells everyone I know, oh, by the way, you know what I'm doing, da, da, da. And to the point where they're like, whatever, Jeni, like they get annoyed with me because I'm like, I want everyone to know that I'm going to do it, because it puts me on the hook for doing it, right? Because then in a year, when I see them again, or 6 months or 2 weeks, they're going to be like, did you do it? And my answer to them can't be, nah.
Right.
Like, you can't do that. You got to be like, well, yeah, or whatever. So
little societal pressure, nothing wrong
on the yeah.
And then also too, from the Wikipedia, it said that, and I'm actually shocked to hear this, that when you first pitched it to North Market the first couple times, they said no.
Yeah, they did.
Was that devastating? Like, how did you overcome that?
Okay, so in 2 different businesses. So there was Jeni's, and then before that it was Scream Ice Cream, both in the market. And at Scream Ice Cream, they just weren't interested at all. So this was in 1996. They had the market had just moved from what it had been before, which was just a little Quonset hut. Now it's the oldest continually operated market in the Midwest. The North Market is. Mm-hmm. And so it had gone from various buildings over the years, but it had always been in service, right? It wasn't like just because like in the 90s it became popular, so the community revived it. It had always been there. So when the last one burned down, they were in this like horrible Quonset hut with a dirt floor. So they had just moved into the building next door, which was like an awesome warehouse, which is where it is now. It had been imagine this, it had been a records warehouse for Nationwide Insurance back before computers, right? Where they had to have like paper trail of everything. So obviously they didn't need that anymore. And so they moved the market into that building. And so what the organizers were doing, and they were very connected to the city of Columbus, is they were trying to build a grocery destination that would be where people would go back to having grocery shopping directly from the people who are making, growing, producing it, and procuring it. Such an awesome idea. They wanted only people who were doing grocery. And it makes sense, but that was what I was going up against. We were like, does ice cream fit in? Or they were really worried that the North Market was going to turn into like, I think what they call it, like a fudge and, cards shop, right? So like when you go up and you're like in a tourist little village by the lake or whatever, there's always like the fudge lady and the greeting cards and tchotchkes and stuff like that. So they were really worried that ice cream was sort of turning it into that. Totally understood, but I had to convince them that wasn't the case. So the way that I did that, actually, there was an ice cream show on PBS. It was a fantastic ice cream show. If you ever get a chance to watch it, back before, the technology we have now, where I could just find it and email it to you from YouTube. I didn't have anything, my family wasn't together at the time. I didn't have any money, I had nothing, but my grandparents lived in Florida and they had a VCR, right? Even by the standards of life back then, most people had a VCR. I did not. So I had my grandfather record it when it was on, when it aired. And then he mailed that tape to me. And then I gave it to the people at the market. And what it showed in that ice cream special, it was very beautiful. One of the first profiles that it did was on Bassett's Ice Cream in the Reading Terminal Market. And Bassett's is an old American company, 150, 175 years old. They've been in this market. It's very much like the North Market for a really long time. And they are beautiful. That was what changed their mind. So it's back to that idea of when someone says no, what do? The last thing you do is just walk away and say, thank you.
Right.
Right. In your mind, you say, I'll be back.
Right. You came back with
proof. I just didn't do it right this time. I just didn't convince you this time, but I will be back. And so I found this thing. I called my grandfather. We did that. And then again, at Jeni's, it had to happen again. Now, this is a different group of leaders at the market. But what had happened was Scream wasn't very successful. And so they were like, why would we have you back? And I had to say, well, because I've learned everything. Now I get how to do it. And that was a while. So what I did that time, and you're going to find, if the more you look into what my story, this is what I do all the time. Like, I just literally never take no for an answer. It's very annoying to be married to me, or like, to be a friend of mine. But they were just like, no, thank you. And I was like, but this has to happen. I've got this whole thing now. And they said no over and over again. So I got a job at the market. So I just got a job, and I was just there all the time. Hello. Every time the manager of the market would walk by, hey, Dave, hey, it's Jeni, how you doing? I mean, it was like, literally, I camped out there.
It's incredible.
And I just became friends with him. And then he began to get trust in me that that I really did understand what I was doing. And that was what led to me being allowed back in.
That's so
sorry. I give very long answers, but
no, I like it. I mean, I think you're going to truly inspire people with that story, because it's very easy to be discouraged when someone says no. But the first time you got told no, you're like, well, I don't have easy access to this video, but I'm going to call grandpa and get this video. And then you send it to him. And then that business kind of failed, but you failed forward. You got a job there and you just stuck it out. And I think that's really incredible.
I think the main thing is I'm asking myself, what did I not get across? Like, why are they not seeing it the way that I am? What do I have to change about my approach to get them to see the vision that I see? Because that's clearly beautiful. We need to kind of figure out how to come to the middle on this. And so I never think it's like, oh, they just actually hate my vision. I think they must not see it the way that I do. Literally like a kid who will not shut up about it and like trying to get your approval. But anyway, I mean, it really is. It's like, what did I do wrong? It's never like they're whatever I just keep coming back with a new approach until it works.
That's awesome.
Or until it's literally burned and dead in the water.
So being that you're an ice cream mogul, I'm sure people pitch ice cream flavors to you all the time. And if that is correct, how do you feel about it? Like, is it annoying? Do you think it's charming, or does it depend?
I love it. It's very charming. That's a perfect way to put it. Part of my my goal, and I've written 2 books, is to get people thinking in terms of flavor and in terms of what is my flavor? Because when you look up the word flavor in the dictionary, it actually means character, the essential character of something. And so we're talking about character, we're talking about personal character, but we're also talking about what flavor surrounds you, right? So what if I was the ice cream maker? What stories would I be telling that are different from Jeni's or the other ice cream people? So I think that this is like thinking like this, and for kids, it's awesome, is part of my goal in life. And so when people bring flavor ideas to me, whether it's just deliciousness, something that they are craving, or it's more, deeper than that, I love it.
That's great.
And this is my life. I've been living this life for a long, long time. So this happens to me daily. Like, I'll be at Target looking at deodorant and somebody will pat me on the shoulder, Jeni, hey, I was thinking about mango with like saffron and rose petal. And I'll be like, that's awesome. And then sometimes I'll just follow up and send them a recipe for it.
Have you ever had a recipe that you created that you had really high hopes for, and then it kind of bombed? And if so, what did you do? Did you just get rid of it, or did you try to rework it because you are such like a perseverance type person?
Yes. Well, if I love something, we're going to figure it out, and a great example of that is actually what we, what I a lot of times call buttermilk frozen yogurts. So they are the sort of lemon, blueberry, the recent Tyler, the Creator flavor was on that. Think about it as like a platform,
Mm-hmm.
I think about these flavors as if they were sort of my recipe for sherbet, right? Except that sherbet actually has a federal definition and it doesn't fit into that. So from a flavor profile perspective, my yogurts are really tart, super creamy, really fruity, and they're really beautiful. And they're like what you would think of as like the perfect sherbet. But from an ingredient perspective, it falls below, or actually above, the amount of dairy that's allowed to be in a sherbet. Sherbet is basically like ice cream and sorbet if they had a baby. Like literally, it's like half sorbet and half ice cream, and you just mix them together and then that becomes sherbet. But anyway, people, when I first started making them in the 90s, people were thinking about TCBY and how terrible for the most part that is. Yeah. And then after a while, they started thinking about pinkberry, which is sort of okay. It's pretty good, but it's different than what I'm doing. And so I was never able to get them their own sort of place or class or like stage. And so they just were always a very low seller. So what I did recently, and recently being the last 2 or 3 years, that I stopped calling them yogurt. I took yogurt and buttermilk off, because I think people don't really know how to handle that. Like it either sounds like health food or like it's supposed to taste like ice cream, but it's not.
Right.
And I just started making up new names for them. So we have like orange blossom, same exact recipe. It's this tart, very creamy, beautiful. It almost tastes like a push up when you were
Nice.
a kid. But instead of calling it orange blossom buttermilk frozen yogurt or yogurt, we call it orange blossom chiffon. Just
Nice.
made it up, chiffon, whatever. It's a chiffon. It's airy and light and whatever. And then for like blueberry, we'll call it like lemon blueberry parfait.
Ooh.
Right. So it's just like parfait means layered, or we'll call it just pineapple upside down cake. And that's fine. So once we started leaving off the idea that it was yogurt and buttermilk, and yogurt and buttermilk just brings tartness to it and a lot of like creaminess because of the way it interacts with the cream, they started selling like crazy. And that's been all the difference. So this has been literally a 25 plus year adventure for me. Like, how do I get these amazing ice creams, the space and accolades I think that they deserve? Because every time I would put our ice cream in front of like a top level chef, they would always go to those flavors. And those were always my favorites as well. But so anyway, it's all of those flavors would be the answer to that question.
Did you have any surprise hits? Like maybe you made a flavor and you were like, I love it. I don't know how the public will perceive it, but then it blew up and became wildly popular?
Well, I wouldn't say that it blew up to be so popular that we have to have it, but on our signature, but there were flavors that surprised me that I absolutely had no idea that people would eat, love, and remember for years. One of those is cedar wood vanilla. It's such a good flavor. I actually also use another like resin to make that flavor called Peru balsam, which sounds like shampoo, because I think they actually use it in shampoo sometimes. But Peru balsam is a resin from a tree in Ecuador, and it actually has a very vanilla. Actually, you know what it tastes like? It's really a scent. Is pipe smoke.
Okay.
It's this incredible, like you just want to like curl up and go to sleep in it. In that scent. It's like I say that it's like this flavor. So it was like Peru balsam, cedar wood, and then a really beautiful, smoky, heady vanilla. Mm-hmm. And I said that it tastes like, or it really is a scent, it smells like the neck of a cashmere sweater on like a really handsome man. And that's like the best way to describe it. But nobody wants, I don't know. I was like, did anybody want to eat wood scented ice cream? But turns out they did. And I was really floored. And we sold all of it and would have sold more. So we just didn't make enough. And people still to this day are like, we want more of that. So I have to figure out how to bring that one back. It's a great holiday flavor.
It really is. And I feel like if you can do, in my opinion, I'm not an ice cream expert, but I feel like if you can do vanilla well, I think you're crushing it. Because I think other flavors kind of hide imperfections, whereas vanilla is kind of just, I think everything has to be perfect for a vanilla to be really good.
No, you're exactly right. And that's the game really with most of my flavors versus some other ice cream companies or other ice cream trends, I should say. When you put a lot of stuff in your ice cream, especially if it's a lot of junk food or whatever, that can be totally great and delicious, but you're not tasting the actual ingredients. You're tasting this sort of sweet, salty punch, the textural stuff, versus like actually going deep on the notes of the ingredients. And I think ice cream is a really like a metaphor for life in a way, like especially if you get it on an ice cream cone, not in a cup, because you have to be with it. So it sucks you into the moment where hopefully because if you're not in the moment, right, it disappears in front of you. Yeah. It's going to disappear, and that's life, right? So paying attention is a good thing. And ice cream, if you have it on a cone where you can't put it down and go think of something else, pulls you into the moment. But when you're there, maybe you're going to be experiencing things a little richer, because that's what happens when you come into the moment, when you're not spinning about the what ifs of your future, right? Where we all get anxiety from, right? So get an ice cream on a cone and then connect with it. And those simple flavors can often be the ones that have the most bloom, the ones you can go the deepest on, the ones with the longer finish, because they're not just about, chunks and the sort of very quick moment of sweet, sour, bitter, salty, which disappear immediately. They're more about those long lasting finishes and scents, but they're the harder ones to make because you have to start with really good ingredients, because nothing hides, Right. If you use the strawberry flavoring, you're going to get all that chemical flavor as well with the flavoring, versus if you use real fresh strawberries. But that's a harder ice cream to make.
I love your ice cream. I'm a big fan of it. And I think the price point makes sense because it's top-notch ingredients. And I know everything's like super fair trade and everything is like super elite top tier. But have you ever considered making a more accessible pint? Because $12 is a lot for a pint. and I'll gladly pay it. So I'm not like attacking you. I'm just wondering if
No,
like,
yeah.
yeah. So
So we do. So we have quite a few of our flavors that we have sort of re-engineered, not from what's in the pint, because it's the same, whether it's like our salty caramel or brown butter, almond butter. But what we've done is engineered the sort of supply chain so that we can work with our partners and say, well, look, how about this? What if we could commit to selling this much versus this much? Because if we just put it in our stores, we're going to sell this much. But if we offer it to Whole Foods and Publix and Kroger, we can sell this much. But if we can do that, we really have to get it to $7.99 a pint, right? We have to. So what can we do to do that and still make it worth your while to grow these ingredients or make this for us? And so we have been able to figure out some of those flavors. And then there are other flavors that are just going to be more bespoke. They're going to be, you know, we're making a marshmallow, or when you see like 3 things in a pint, you know, where we've made a sauce, a marshmallow, and an ice cream, or, you know, a gravel or something like that. Those are often going to be more expensive because they just take that much longer to do versus like something like lemon yogurt, which is absolutely beautiful, but it also doesn't have a cake or a sauce in it that we've also had to make. So you can see how that could get to a $7.99 price point, or something like salty caramel, which is absolutely gorgeous, flavor for miles. No one in the ice cream business makes actually caramelized over fire ice cream, right? It's sugar caramelized over fire, and it's this really cool, very delicate process, very violent, I think, in a way. Like it's like we go to Hades to make it, but beautiful in terms of flavor. But anyway, those ones we can do for a little bit less. And so we've been able to sort of separate them and work on that without sacrificing our fellowship, which is what we think of as like the people that it took to make the product. So when you give us your dollar, we're giving it to another human being, whether they work for our company or whether they worked out in the field growing those strawberries for us. And that's our goal, is to take your dollars and not give them to a nameless corporation or a faceless corporation, but whenever we can, I mean, it's like the goal of why we exist, give it to another human being who exists to make, grow, or produce that. So that's, you know, the long answer to, yeah, love to, but what we're not going to sacrifice is who we are. So we are working on that deeply, because, you know, other people have done that, right? So we don't need to sacrifice grass pastured milk, or we don't need to sacrifice our relationship with someone, because you can buy cheaper ice cream.
That's true.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not why we exist. If you want Jeni's, if you want this ice cream, then this is what it is. And yes, we will continue to work to make within those boundaries different price points. But yeah.
So this is totally off topic here, complete 180 here. What do you think makes a great dining experience when you're the customer? And it doesn't have to be just related, just like when you're out at a restaurant dining, what makes a great dining experience?
So it's a really great question. And I think that that in the service business, because I have been in the service industry, and it is the service, I have a whole philosophy. It's my whole life philosophy is service, right? When I'm in service to someone else, and when I know that I have the power to make someone's day, I actually feel better. It's weird. I actually feel more like me, and I feel happier, right? But what happens is that a lot of people who are in the business of service, of serving each other and loving each other, we don't take time to allow others to serve us, right? It's just, it's a hard thing to do. So to sort of surrender to that moment and allow someone else to do that for you so that you can experience it, it's hard, but it's important, because that's how you know how to get better, right?
Yeah.
So I have struggled with it, but I also really, really appreciate it. And I do love that. So I think of it as very similar to being the host at your own home, right? If I feel welcomed, and if I feel a warmth from you, and I feel like you want me to be there, and that it's not just you're putting on a little show because really you want to get off for the, you know, be released from your duties tonight or whatever. That to me that is everything. That warmth that you feel from another person. And I know that when I'm doing that, and that's really that's like why I exist, I feel like. And it's like why I was born into the world, is to exude that warmth in person, especially to like make someone else feel loved. When you can do that to someone else, I don't know, I just feel like yes, they're going to feel great, but I feel like you get more out of it than anyone else. And so then it almost doesn't feel like a job. It feels like a calling. But anyway, I've answered the question kind of weirdly, but I think it's important to put yourself on that other side from when you're in the service industry, and to like surrender to it and allow yourself to be taken care of, because I think that's how you get better at what you do. So I just would say it all gets summed up for me in, did I feel valued, loved, wanted? Did I feel like there was a warmth to this relationship that you build with someone just for that 1 hour that you're in the restaurant, and that person who's the server is representing the whole team behind the scenes as well. And so it's like a really important job. I think of it as a very important job.
It is. Yeah. I used to be a server for 5.5 years in New York City, Times Square, very busy restaurant. I loved making guests day. Like if something as simple as just doing like a verbal quality check, like, hey, how's your food tasting? Like something that small, people get so excited. They're like, oh my goodness, like I was expecting New York rude service, but you asked me what my food is. Oh my God.
Yeah,
So
that's something else too. It's like when you can change someone's perception or what they believe, especially if they were sort of making the assumption that this was going to be a negative experience, but then you can create a positive one. I mean, that, the people who you can do that to, that mind flip, right? That's like a Jedi mind trick, right?
it is. Yeah.
And like when you can do that, what you won't see, but you have to just believe and know, is that when they leave, they're going to share that with someone else. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that is so beautiful.
It
Like,
really is.
you'll never see it. You'll never benefit from it, but you will. Because if we create that standard in our neighborhoods and in our communities, it always does come back to us,
Right.
Anyway, I believe so much in this kind of stuff.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I think good vibes are very important to a meal, because if someone comes up and they have really bad body language and they're making you and your family and friends uncomfortable, like even if the food's amazing 10 out of 10, like if you have bad service, it all kind of falls apart.
You know what? The food doesn't taste as good. It's so weird, but it really doesn't, because how you feel. I am a huge believer. I am very into what I spend a lot of time on what my philosophy is, my personal philosophy. I read a lot of ancient Greek philosophy and other philosophies, and just through experience or whatever. And I really believe that thinking is like a whole body thing, right? Thinking, experiencing, evaluating, and even reason comes from not just your brain, and maybe first your body. And so what you experience is first driven by how you feel and how something makes you feel. And I remember when I was a kid, I was known as the tamale girl. These Mississippi tamales that would come. There was places in Illinois. We were like, much more connected to our rivers than we are here. But in Illinois, it's the Mississippi River and then the Illinois River. And like what would happen in the early part of last century is that you would get this New Orleans, Chicago connection. And so there was like this food route. And so tamales were like a really big deal in places in Illinois, in places along the Mississippi. And they were very different than like the Mexican tamales. They were more of like almost like a Creole, and they sort of changed as they went up. But they're delicious. And I could get them various ones in different restaurants, but at the A&W root beer stand, I could get them. And man, when I was 7 years old, they were my favorite thing. I could eat them all day long. I could eat them, and then one day I ate them and I had an appendicitis.
Uh-oh.
And it was the most painful thing I'd ever experienced as a child. And one of the most painful things I'd ever experienced is in my life. And I couldn't eat them after that, right? They were just as delicious the day after as they were before, but my perception of them, because I thought maybe they had caused that, or because that was my had changed. And so how your body reacts and how your body feels about the moment actually impacts how you the flavor. And that's one of the reasons when you come into our stores, if you want, we'll give you a little bit of background about the flavor, because it actually can highlight and brighten those flavors as well.
And I think too, like if someone knows how much thought and care went into each ingredient, I think that improves the taste too, because they know that it wasn't just thrown together all willy-nilly. Like a lot of thought, love, and care went into it. So I think that helps for sure.
Totally.
So now, do you have an example of like a best dining experience?
I do. And I'm just now trying to think of what this beautiful restaurant was that I went to. I think it was an Alain Ducasse restaurant in a very small, tiny village in the south of France. And oh my gosh, I cannot think of it. Anyway, he, is a very famous French chef, but this was like a little village restaurant. And he ran it, but it was like it was basically training ground, I think, for his other restaurants. And everyone there was like, I don't know, I swear some of them were like 16 years old. Like they were being brought up in his realm of like to be trained to do service and chef work and things like that. And I don't think I've ever had a better dining experience than when I was there. They were all really young, which was so interesting. And I remember what I ate. It was like this beautiful, like frothy cucumber soup. And I can't even explain how ethereal it was and how many layers it was. You know, you think of cucumbers as being like very simple and very light. Well, it was, but it also had lots of flavor, almost like it, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it was like a water and anyway, beautiful. And I remember having pigeon. You know, you didn't get to choose what you had. I probably wouldn't have ordered it, but it was like raw. I mean, like,
Oh my God.
like raw. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to like this. And roasted grapes. And it was literally the best thing I've ever put in my mouth. Now it was the whole situation in the restaurant that was so beautiful, and the caring that went into every single thing, and the garden that was right outside that you kind of saw as you walked in and actually got a little tour of, and they were growing things in it. And it was like, it's just everything came together at once. And to this day, I've eaten at a lot of the restaurants that are considered the top, you know, in our country and even in the world. And I just go back to that one it was a very humble experience, even though it was very beautiful and top level chef experience, you know?
That's incredible. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, do you have like a worst dining experience? And we don't have to name names and throw anyone under the bus here, but do you have like a worst dining experience that comes to mind?
You know, I will just say that I do not like cutting corners in restaurants. And so I think there's a way to do good food simply, and maybe that means having a shorter menu, you know. And so I can't go places where like you're using bagged lettuce, for instance. I simply can't, because that to me says something very specific, right? And plus those lettuces, they all age and decompose at different rates.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll almost always get like some black melting ones. I can't handle bagged lettuce, whether it's romaine or the mixed greens or whatever. And that is one of the, like, if you are a restaurant, and there are restaurants on all levels who is taking the effort to cut their own iceberg lettuce, it doesn't matter what the lettuce is, I have more respect for you than some of the higher quality, you know, it's the so-called higher quality restaurants that are charging more, but they're using bagged lettuce. I just can't. And of course, the same will be true for salad dressing. Those are the easiest, simplest things. Just lemon juice, salt, and olive oil is better than gloppy anything else, I will say. But all of those are very easy to make. And so there's like, it's just stuff like that. You know what I mean? I will choose, and I notice it. You know, I'll choose to go to a restaurant that actually like cares about what and they're not just walking over into GFS and filling up a cart and then frying everything and putting, you know, it just means a lot. So for me, no matter what the level is, it would be about like, are they making stuff there?
From scratch. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I have my food account, and I've eaten, I don't know, probably over 1,000 restaurants, and it really seems like most places do just kind of go to GFS and just get like, because I've been to countless restaurants, and I definitely will not name names, but
once you lock into that, once you know what it is, like, you know, you're like walking through GFS and you're like, okay, sweet potato fries, yep, right? Exactly. And you know exactly when you go to those restaurants, and sweet potato fries are those specific kind, and you're like, they're in every restaurant in the city, it's right? And they're like, man, they're fine. But like when someone makes sweet potato fries from scratch, and we just had some from the Whitney House the other day, and you're like, this I respect, like, it's awesome, you know. And like sometimes you have to eat like whatever, it's fine. I'm not like, you know, I mean, I'll be there too. Like I sometimes go and have the sweet potato fries that are obviously from GFS. It's just the thing that like, it's not necessary. And I think sometimes it's even more expensive as a restaurant to like go to the so like have to go and just get everything out of the freezer and like fry it. Mm-hmm. Exactly. But once you see that, once you lock into it, you're like, okay, salad dressing came from them, the greens, the fries, the chicken sandwich was just all from their bag or whatever. And you're like, whatever, I can't. I would just rather eat at home. And I feel like it's like become kind of like almost like it's like kind of seeping into all levels of restaurants, you know, where you like cutting corners. And that's why I have so much respect for the restaurants that don't do that. And there are, just like in the ice cream world, there are ice creams on every price point that are really good. Things like strawberry ice cream, for instance, there's no reason to make a crappy strawberry. There's no reason to eat a crappy strawberry ice cream. They're all pretty good because there's efficiencies in the system that help even like, you know, the less expensive strawberry be pretty good. And it's the same thing in restaurants. There are restaurants of all price points who are doing it right.
Awesome. So I just have one more question for you, Jeni, and it's an ice cream related one. CBD oil is very popular now. Have you ever considered making a CBD ice cream?
I have. But so CBD oil, I mean, everybody has a different take on it. Like, it doesn't do anything for me at all. I know many people in that sort of the cannabis world. I've done some investigating. And I just feel like for me, it's not like, I feel like it's marketing, honestly, a lot of it. And I know that like other people totally disagree and have had like massive, it's game life changing, and that's great. I haven't found that to be true. And the only reason we would put it in ice cream. So first of all, like maybe you're having, success with arthritis or whatever, whatever. The only reason we would put it in ice cream is because it makes you feel a certain way, right? Because it doesn't have a flavor.
Right.
So can you make ice cream that makes you feel chill and, lower anxiety? I don't think that CBD really has enough effect to make it worth anybody's while to like go get the ice cream with that. I mean, if that was, if you're really suffering from something like that, you're going to just go straight to the oil and probably drink the whole thing. I don't know.
Right.
Now, don't get me started on cannabis and various other, mood altering,
Can we expect a psychedelic mushroom flavor?
I mean,
if it were legal,
outside of the realm of my thinking.
Cool. That's really fun.
At all. I very much believe in the power of psilocybin in trauma and many other things. And I think some of that is just coming into light. I mean, and so I don't know where ice cream could possibly play a role in that, but I am keeping up with what's going on in that world, because I think that we've got it wrong in the way that we try to heal PTSD and trauma. And I do work with some veterans and very much respect all, veterans and people and also people, people who've gone through trauma. And it turns out it's like all of us,
right?
We're struggling because we've all been through it. And so anything that we can do that's going to provide relief, I'm really interested in. Now there's a lot more to that discussion. I mean, who's going to make the money off of it and all of that stuff. And we've got to figure those things out, because this is really valuable stuff. But I don't know where ice cream fits into that. But to me, again, even when we talk about ice cream, it just comes back to people. Are we making each other feel loved? Are we making each other feel appreciated, feel seen, feel valued? And are we caring for each other in a way that's healing? Because we all need that, especially now. And that's what we do when we make ice cream. Really, truly, that's what it's about for us. And so what else can we do that? How else can we help?
Yeah.
That's what we ask.
Ice cream is like a hug. It's very comforting. So that was it. That was the podcast. Jeni, thank you so much for being a guest. If you have anything else you'd like to say, any like outro or anything, and I'm going to put all your social down in the description here, but if you have any last words, I'd love to hear it.
No, I just have had so much fun today. It's great. You're awesome. And I love seeing your smile. It's really fun to I wish we could be in person, but I just wish you the best. This was such a fun interview, and you're just such a fun person. And I just wish you the best.
Thank you so much, Jeni. I appreciate it. And I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Bye.